Okay, we're recording. Welcome everyone to Sustainable Nutrition During the Holidays. Our special guest is Shanique Allen, who is a nutrition coach. She's a precision nutrition certified nutrition coach, and she has today she's going to be sharing her special take on how to do sustainable nutrition during the holidays, but also year round. So she doesn't do diets. She doesn't do any restrictive things in that way. It is truly a formula of sustainable eating throughout your life. And I'm going to spotlight Miss Shanique now so she can start talking. Hello, Shanique.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I hope this lighting works because yeah, my house is kind of bright. Um, so thanks so much for having me, guys. I really am excited just to share this very simple, and I say super simple. I mean, it's something I wish I was taught earlier in life. Um, so I'm so glad to be able to share it with you guys. I know you guys are into working out, which is why I'm here. And nutrition, of course, is a complementary piece to it, especially if you're trying to, improve your health overall, but you also have some other, some specific goals. And true story or backstory, I'm a former dieter, competitor. I'm a former competitive athlete. That's one. Two, I am a former dieter. So I was into the bodybuilding and physique world. So dieting is not new to me. I spent years doing it. Luckily, I didn't have a really bad relationship with dieting. I just went from not knowing anything to being put on a diet, and I'm a rules and structure type of person. So it wasn't very hard for me to get into it. That said, having spent years in diets, I developed certain types of habits, some good, others not so great. So it's from that perspective that I was able to use what I learned, but also um, backtrack on things I wish I had not done. And now I'm using that strategy with clients. So first off, I am non-diet slash anti-diet. That said, I know there is a purpose for some diets once properly monitored, but it's not for the everyday person. That's the stance I take as far as diets are concerned. Healthy eating is pretty much normal, and it's something that I make it my mission to help other women achieve. Normal, making healthy eating a normal, freeing kind of experience. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to share with you using that method, specifically basic bowls. Basic bowls, here's the truth about basic bowls. Basic bowls started with me just taking my food and putting it in a bowl and saying, all right, do I have all the things? That's really how it started, because I was having I was going through a period where I was just eating all kinds of crap and wasn't feeling that great. And I'm like, no, Shanique, you know better than this. This is not what you do. How can you start to feel better? And I did not want to go down the dieting road. The road. I've been there, done that. I just didn't want to. Plus, it no longer fit my lifestyle. So I'm like, all right, let's put everything on a bowl and see what happens. And basic bowl became a thing. So I preach that a lot because of its simplicity. So what I'm just gonna jump into it and share my screen with you guys. Oh, and while I go through this, if there are any questions, so I'm breaking this up into two. So the first piece, I'm gonna teach all about basic goal and healthy eating, and then I'm gonna address the holiday piece. So you can choose to either ask the questions between the two spots, or you can wait till everything's done and ask, or honestly, if you have a burning question, you can just stop me or shout out, Shanique, I have a question, and we can talk through it. Sounds good? All right. Let me present, but also, oops, let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right. So We're talking sustainable nutrition during the holidays, but really, this is just a way to eat normally. Holidays are not. The holidays does present some unique and particular circumstances, which is I will go into. But for the most part, this is how I teach people to eat generally. And during the holidays is just one scenario that this is applicable. It applies to any other type of scenario where it throws you off your normal way of doing things, normal routine, normal access. This is a very simple way to get through. All right, so there we go. So who am I? Tina already introduced me, but in case you're wondering what my mission is, this is literally it. I help men and women build healthy eating habits from scratch using basic bowls. There's nothing to it. It's that simple. That's what I do. And I'm doubling down on it because more so than ever, I'm seeing it where people really need simplicity. All right, so what is a healthy diet? For the most part, took this definition from Wikipedia because it's the most general definition there is. It's a diet that helps you maintain or improve your overall health. So whatever goals you have, if the idea is to move from 0 to 50, 0 to 30, a healthy diet is one way to do that. A lot of people measure this health in different ways. A lot of people will use markers from, going to the doctor and having certain numbers and they want to improve that. Some people might gauge this through energy. Some people might gauge this through how, skin changes. Some people might gauge this through body changes. But for the most part, the healthy diet is one that helps you maintain or improve your overall health. And it does this by providing you with essential nutrition. So we're talking not just the physical food, but we're talking fluids as well. So fluid, micro, and macronutrients, which you get from physical food, which together give you your total calories. We're not focusing on calories, but for the most part, calories is the energy value that your food gives you. Yeah. So healthy diet provides you with adequate calories so you can live a healthy life. And why is this important? Well, one of the studies that I read, which I referenced here, stated that the average life expectancy for a woman is 80 years old. And it's not enough really to just say, okay, I'm going to eat just my calories. I'm just going to eat sufficient calories to support me living to 80. The foods that make up those calories is what's super important because those foods do have an impact on developing or putting someone at risk for developing certain non-communicable, aka lifestyle diseases, chronic conditions like your diabetes, your osteoporosis, which is a bone disease, certain cancers, and heart disease. So when people talk about why a healthy diet is important, this is significant. This has very little to do with weight. That's the first thing. It's pretty much just about improving or reducing your risk for these diseases. So a diet consisting of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, wholesome sources of protein, which interestingly enough, a lot of the studies seem to not prefer animal sources of protein as part of a healthy diet because of the additional fat that's contributed by animal protein. So they will source mostly plant foods. That said, lean sources of protein do provide great benefits and add to a healthy diet. So that's why I also include wholesome protein here. So if you can focus on that and, reduce or limit the refined starches, the saturated fatty foods and meats, which they also include in red meat. If you're looking to in dieting world, you'll see a lot of people refer to beef, beef sirloin, ground beef. Those are, sources of meat that people say are healthy. But if you were to look it up, they would actually classify red meat as something you should limit. And a lot of doctors will tell you this as well. So it's also included here. But for the most part, it can be included in one's diet in a responsible way. So this is why a healthy diet is important. Removing or reducing your consumption of these saturated fatty foods, refined starch and meat, and added sugars will reduce your risk or is likely to reduce your risk of developing those non-communicable diseases. Okay, so just to give you some background here as far as what healthy eating is about, what it's for, why it's necessary, and how you adopt it. I'm not going to tell you to cut things out. I'm just going to simply say, let's just try and eat real, whole, minimally processed foods. That's a broad description. So if you think of something that's unprocessed, chances are it's going to be healthy for you. It comes from the ground, chances are it's going to be healthy for you. It comes off of a tree, chances are it's going to be healthy for you. But I will also say, eat some foods that you enjoy some of the time. You know, that way, um, you you don't feel restricted. So a healthy diet is being aware of what is better for you, but also using that awareness responsibly. So you can most of the time eat the real whole plant foods, basically, if you want to call it that, and then and some of the time throw in some of those foods that you enjoy. What does this therefore mean for you? And this is where a lot of education and communication is important, not just with you and your coaches, but you and your family. You know, as you learn new information, you share it with your family, you implement it in ways that make sense for you. And for a lot of people, healthy eating will mean different things. But for the most part, these are a few things that can be captured when you ask somebody about what it means for them. It means eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're satisfied. So you're not overstuffing yourself. It means eating balanced meals. So again, taking what we know of what a healthy diet looks like and incorporating that into our daily nutrition, including snacks. It's eating according to your body's energy needs. So what I will eat to sustain me and give me energy might be different, or more than likely will be different from what Tina will eat on a daily basis to give her energy. Again, eating foods that you can enjoy. Eating healthy also means taking that awareness again of what healthy eating is and making room for all the foods. So you eat most of the time those healthy, unprocessed, minimally processed foods. Some of the times, the foods that you enjoy that might not fit into that category. Exercising restraint, which is in um, my way of thinking, is a particularly different thing from restriction, and I will explain this a little bit later. And I think it's very, very important, especially around the holidays. And then healthy eating might mean eating in a way that keeps you feeling good, moving well, being happy for the rest of your life in your body. Okay, for the most part, but just being alive, being around, being healthy, things that make you feel healthy, things that make you feel alive. That's what healthy eating means for a lot of people. Okay, maybe you identify with some of these. Maybe there are others that you consider important. Which I will stick. Maybe Tina can make this note, and I would love for people to tell me when they think of eating healthy, what it means for them. So Tina can make a note of that for me so that I can come back around to that. But I will say this specifically, and this is, you can quote me on this: healthy eating is not dieting. That's my feeling. I can't tell that there's an actual definition, but that's in my experience, having worked with the clients I've worked with, having done it myself, I can tell you for a fact, healthy eating is not dieting. However, the medical profession and diet culture, that is what they push as healthy eating. And for them, it's dieting. You go on a diet, you cut out all of those refined foods, fatty foods, added sugars, cut those out and eat only this. That for a lot of them, when they prescribe healthy eating or telling someone to change their eating habits to something healthier, that is what you get from. However, changing one's diet for better health is not the same thing as dieting for weight loss, which is what a lot of doctors and a lot of professionals in the field of health and wellness will push on a lot of people, especially marginalized people in different body size, body types. This is what they equate somebody trying to be healthy to mean. They need to lose weight. Diets for weight loss and diet culture promote restriction. Eating for better health is quite the opposite. It's about addition. So taking what you know or what you currently do to improve it for sustainability for the long run, it's about adding the things that will help your overall health. Let's forget cutting out, let's talk about adding, because the benefit of adding is eventually it crowds things out. So the more you add something, is the more the other things that you know you're not supposed to eat, that they eventually make their way off of your plate. So if you add more fruits and vegetables, if you add more lean proteins, chances are the fattier foods tend to make its way off of your plate, out of your cupboards, out of your house, that type of thing. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Well, I've given you the backdrop. Now let's talk about it in the context of basic bowl. This is within the concept of adding. It's with that idea in mind that basic bowl was created. Like I said, I had been, eating a lot of snacky foods, crappy foods. Those were making their way on my plate. So I was like, all right, let's get them off of my plate, but I don't want to go on a diet. So let's put back more of the things that I used to have, the fruits and vegetables, the whole grains. Let's get those things back on my plate. So that's how Basic Bowl was created. If any of you follow me on social media, you'll see me post at least once, maybe twice, sometimes 3 times a day, of a bowl. And it literally is me taking what I have in my cupboard, my kitchen, my fridge, and putting it in a bowl, covering certain things, which I will now explain. What does a basic bowl look like? Well, it's pretty simple. It is you can create a balanced meal with what you have, so long as you can identify 4 things: protein, some veggies, carbohydrates, healthy fats. I will also include fruit. I will say fruits and veggies. Fruits are parts of carbohydrates as well, but research has shown that we do not get enough fruits and veggies on our plate. So I'm going to make fruit and veggies. It actually should have been fruit and veggies. I include fruit and veggies separate from carbohydrates, because carbohydrates include your grains, your legumes, and some of your processed foods. Okay. So the basic bowl principle is simple. Take one thing from each of those categories, put it on your plate, and you're set. And I mean, this can apply to any single situation. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I wish I had put those pictures here, but I didn't. And then when it comes to how much, because that's always a concern, how much is too much or how much is enough? Your hand, my friends, is the best tool you got. If you're not about counting and measuring and this is the best tool you got. And as somebody who really, I'm telling you, for over, I'd say maybe 8 years, Shanique used a food scale with her food, like a food scale. I never went anywhere without a food scale. Okay, so the idea of using my hand was like it was a foreign concept to me. But when I started using it, I'm like, okay, because I knew I didn't want to go back to that life of measuring my food all the damn time. So using my hand was the best thing. And here's the perfect guide for that. So it says here, this source is from Precision Nutrition, which I thought I had put the source on it. It says women 1 pound. I, however, don't stick to that just because if you're active in general, 1, 2, if you're older, you are going to need more than that. That's just it. Women, as we get older, we lose bone density. So things and muscles, so things like protein, for sure, 1 might not be enough. So let's just go through it. Let me grab a plate. Because this is important that I share this with you. So the idea of using your hand, like, but how? I don't want to put food and get messy in my hand. I'm going to give you a real neat trick. Okay, let me grab some actual food. And I will just use one thing as an example. So if we're talking about our hands, I'm going to demonstrate with carbs. But protein, take your hand, if you were to look at your hand, and the size of your palm is a good portion size. So let's say we're talking about one serving here. The other thing too, which I don't tell you, is think of the thickness of your hand as well. So if you're thinking about size, you're like, yeah, but I could use a very flat piece of meat to give me this, but it's not thick and it's not substantial. Just think of it in terms of the size of your hand. So you can use the thickness of your hand and the size of your palm, excluding your fingers. That gives you your protein, one serving. Okay. For your vegetables, your fist. For your carbs, it's a cupped hand. And for your fat serving, it's a thumb size. So if you use nuts, for example, just put some nuts out and measure your thumb against it. Now, I'm going to show you a quick demo of using your hand without getting your hand messy. So I'm going to put some rice on this plate. So it says a cupped hand, right? Here's a neat little trick. If you take whatever serving, yeah, instead of putting the food in your hand, just take your hand and cup it, put it over it. Same thing applies for protein, okay? If I were measuring fat, for example, take my thumb, measure it against it. Can you see that? Did you guys see that? Yeah, so the idea here is you don't have to get super messy with it. It's pretty simple to measure as you go along. It's just using your hand. So if you can start with this, you have a good place to go.
Hey, Shanique, I think
Sure.
people, oh, never mind. Eileen figured it out. Sorry. Someone couldn't see you, but then I think she figured it
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. So that is in terms of the portion sizes, okay? And don't be afraid to adjust. If a palm size protein is enough for you, then work with it. If you're still hungry, then you add more. You know what I mean? Same thing with the veggies. I always say to people, go with double the amount of veggies. You can't go wrong with that. Eat more protein and more veggies. You can't go wrong. You can monitor everything else. But for the most part, because we don't eat enough protein, especially women, it's a known fact. Research has shown women do not eat enough protein, which is why a lot of people go to dieting because they feel they need to count and they need to measure. But quite frankly, you got your hand, it goes with you everywhere. Okay. So you can use it. And then the other thing that stumps a lot of people is, how do I do this without spending a lot of time in the kitchen? How do I do this without messing things up? First thing, you can't mess it up. Second thing, you don't have to spend hours in the kitchen. I personally no longer do that. I don't spend hours in the kitchen. Granted, I'm in the kitchen every day because I like it. But simple ways to create basic bowls without overthinking it, my friend, buy it pre-packaged, pre-cooked, pre-seasoned, pre-cut, right? Salad kits, I'm known for buying them. I buy this beef, grass beef sirloin because one, me cooking beef sirloin from scratch is a disaster always, no matter how many recipes I follow. This works very well. It's minimally seasoned, so I can always add more flavor if I want. I would buy chicken strips every now and then because I don't want to do the work. And I will buy the salad kits. I won't necessarily use the dressings, but it just means I have less work to do in the kitchen. Okay. There's a traditional route where you can buy everything from scratch, spend time and do a batch cooking. So you cook two proteins, for instance. You cook, sweet potatoes and rice, and then you make a whole bunch of veggies. You make a raw salad, and then you make some baked or roasted veggies. That's totally doable. If that's within your reach, go right ahead. But if you don't want to spend the time in the kitchen, there are options. Before, they used to make you feel like you need to do it from scratch. If you're not doing it from scratch, it ain't healthy. Sweetie, as long as it's minimally seasoned, and even if it isn't, and it's not something that you do often, quite frankly, if it allows you to eat sensibly, it's a viable option. It's a good option. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face because somebody says, oh, it's not healthy enough. It's protein, for example, use, and Trader Joe's has these pre-packaged, pre-seasoned meats that they have. Every now and then, when I honestly I'm in no mood to season anything, I will buy one of them. Okay. I might adjust the salt a little bit, but the point is it still works, right? And it gets you to eat well. So try not to overthink it. Frozen veggies, great. I found this brand new, well, for me, it's brand new. Rice cauliflower is something I use because I mix it with jasmine rice, oftentimes trying to trick my husband to eat veggies. But if I use too much, he knows. Um, so sometimes I get away with it, sometimes no. So that's a trick if you ever want to get somebody to eat some more veggies. Throw some rice cauliflower in your rice. And then they have this frozen veggie stir fry blend, which I've totally obsessed with because I don't want to spend time chopping veggies right now. And though it comes with broccoli, I won't. I will pick out everything else and leave the broccoli. So I'll have a ton of broccoli left in the freezer, and I'll just give that to my husband. I can't eat broccoli, but yeah. So there are options. You can utilize them. And the same thing for fruits. Buy pre-chopped fruits if you don't want to spend the time or making them go spoil on the counter. Buy frozen fruits as well. Canned fruits and vegetables also work. And then the other way to do that is to utilize easy ways of cooking. As much as all the instant pot is an easy way, I'm going to say the easiest way to make food is to throw everything in the oven. Honestly, turn the oven on, and if you can put all of your food in there one time, that's golden. The instant pot, you kind of have to cook one thing at a time. Or if you have one of those double steamer type pots, which the instant pot does allow sometimes, you can cook multiple things in there, but that takes a little ingenuity and a little work. But for the most part, you can throw everything in the oven and bake them, roast them. Instant pot, air fryer. I know people who swear by the air fryer right now. Um, it's one way to cook food without oil. That's a great way to go. And of course, your good old saute. If you can throw things in a pan, toss them together, that's one simple way to. There are other ways that people use a slow cooker. People will use things like a grill. You use what you have basically. Don't overthink it. Just what do I have? What kind of work do I want to do? And how much time do I have? Those are three things you want to consider. So if you don't want to do a lot of work, buy things pre-chopped, pre-seasoned, pre-cooked. If you don't want to spend a lot of time, find the shortest way to cook it, right? If you can cook multiple things at the same time, even better. And speaking of not overthinking it, one way you can do is, because a lot of people say they get bored a lot with foods, is change up how you cook them. So stir fry is my go-to. I live by like every day that stir fry is made. I'll never get tired of that because I change ingredients. One pot meal is for the end of the week when I have random amounts of different foods and I don't want to, eat them separately. So I just throw them in like a frittata, or again, I'll put them in, I'll cook them up and then pop them in the oven with maybe some potatoes, mashed potatoes, and make a fall shepherd's pie type of thing. Yeah. And then you've got your sandwich slash wraps, which take whatever you have, roll it up. Rice paper is another thing. Spring roll, you can make spring roll with that as well. I've tried that in the air fryer. Didn't turn out so well. Spring paper, rice paper. Yeah, first time working with it, I was like, I'm not prepared for this. Anyways, and then a mixed salad, which can be a raw salad or it can be a cooked salad. Sorry, a hot salad or a cold salad. So it all depends what you are feeling for, but there are many ways that you can simplify. And then again, I spoke about keeping things interesting or not getting bored with food. Some of the simplest ways to change your food up is change your flavor profile. That's the one I use the most. I um I am Jamaican, so jerk is the go-to seasoning in my house. I have a already wet sauce that I have in my fridge. Shanique ain't chopping up nothing to season anything with. I just take a spoonful, dump it on my meat, season it up. I'm good. That's me. It works well. Um, so that's my go-to. But sometimes I'm like, okay, Shanique, try something. Give your husband something else to eat today. And I will just change it up. However, I recently got a cookbook. I will show you guys what I got. And I really got it more so just because I wanted to change things up. So this is another way you can change things up. Get a cookbook or a recipe book that's simple. And even if you're not about following the recipes to the T, you can just utilize one or two things. So for me, I found the sauces, like she had some sauces in here. So I don't know if you know this book, Cook Once, Eat All Week. I'll give Tina the details. So if you guys are interested in checking this book out, when I say it utilizes the basic bowl concept as far as keeping things simple, one, and using foods. So you'll cook once and eat multiple times. That's the way so I call it leftover makeover. So I will cook today and I'll have some, leftover food and jazz it up and I have a whole new meal. So that's one way to go. Change up your sauces, change up your flavor profile, switch up your food sources. So this week you might be using chicken thighs, chicken breast. Next week you switch it up to beef and fish. The other week you switch it up again. You might switch up your vegetables often. That's a good way to avoid burnout from foods. Switch up your vegetables, switch up your meats, switch up your sauces, and again, use the different ways to cook. Sometimes I will use the air fryer when I'm tired of turning on the oven, or I don't want to go into use the Instant Pot. So simple ways to change things up. All right, so I'm gonna pause it here. So I know I saw some questions happening.
Hey, Shanique, I thought of a question. I don't know if anyone's going to ask this, but so even though diets are not healthy, in a lot of diets, carbs are always vilified. And you have carbs in, as one of the essential items that people should include in the meal. Can you go over the idea of why carbs are not evil and within moderation, maybe what purpose they serve for people?
All right, so carbs were initially villainized, or they have been villainized for a long time, but they were coming from the premise of studies being done for weight loss. Again, a lot of these demonized foods stemmed from the weight loss studies that have been done. So they cut these foods out, and usually they were just doing studies on obese people. So they'll cut these foods out with the intention of um, eliciting some kind of weight loss. The problem is, for the most part, and this is biology, I don't know if I have any scientists in here who work in the field, but you will know that carbs is an essential fuel source for your brain. Your brain doesn't function on any other food source. Keto, however, people in the keto world will argue that, and there's probably some research that will, but I don't know it, to be honest. But from a biological standpoint, your brain survives on carbohydrates. The energy from carbohydrates fuels your brain, essentially fueling your central nervous system. Okay? So it is essential, it is necessary. The source of your carbohydrates might be might be where the villainization stem from. So we're talking the processed sources. So things made with, refined sugars, your breads, your pastas, all of those things. But then you have carbohydrates in your whole grains, in your oats, in your barley, in your sorghum, in your millet, in your, those types of, your grains and your legumes. You've got carbohydrates in those. The point though is there's nothing to fear about carbohydrates. You see this, I went back to this slide for a reason. These are adequate indications or ways to monitor how much carbohydrates you eat. Okay. The other thing is you essentially do need carbohydrates for any energy source. It is the first place that your body is going to tap into to fuel itself. So carbs first. Protein will help you stay full a little longer. Fats will make you stay full longer. But carbs is where your energy is going to come from. So you want to consider carbs as, okay, I'm going to get my energy. This is how I'm going to get my energy. It's not going to do me anything other than provide energy. And even if you eat an excess amount, you honestly have to eat. I won't go into the science of this, but you honestly have to eat a significant amount over a significant amount of time for it to produce the kind of results that people make you think you're gonna get when you eat too much carbs, and that is gain weight. Here's the thing with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates pull water into your muscles, which means any consumption of it is gonna draw water. So that weight gain you think you've gotten is from water. So you eat something today and you're like, oh my God, I'm 4 pounds up tomorrow. No, sweetie, that's water weight for the most part. So, and it will dissipate. Yeah. So carbohydrates, not to be feared. Use this this slide here, your hand serving. You can't go wrong with it. It is important to use this. And also, you can get a significant amount of carbs when you add fruits, when you put your whole grains together, when you put your legumes together. That's sufficient carbs. And then more than just the carbohydrates, you get other micronutrients from these whole foods. That said, there is room for pasta. So if pasta doesn't do you anything, meaning you don't get bloated, if these foods don't cause you any physical harm, eating them in moderation using this, you can't go wrong. The key with eating carbs, I will always tell people, is balance it out with some protein. That way you prevent the energy crashes that will happen, the spike in the hunger that will happen. Your blood glucose will spike, but that depends on the types of food you eat. One, two, only it's that much of a concern if you are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. If you are not, you are totally fine.
And then Cassandra had a question about your thoughts on intermittent fasting.
Okay,
Eating
I
between.
saw this. I saw this question. So this is interesting because here is a thing. Intermittent fasting, again, is another method that was developed for weight loss. That was the premise behind it, and there are a lot of studies I've seen that are proponents of it for its impact. That said, you are not a control study, one, and for the average person, they don't get guidance into doing intermittent fasting. Okay, it is not something that I will say to people for you to take up on your own, because there are specific guidelines that require monitoring. And if someone doesn't have somebody, say, in their back pocket or someone that can guide them through the process, so set them up, guide them, monitor them on a regular basis, it poses problems for people. Why? Because a lot of people on a 16-hour fast, let's use that for instance, since that's the average, 16 and 8. So you fast for 16 hours, you go about your day, you're hungry, and you've got a short window to eat. You are going to, one, try to eat as much as you can in that window because you're starving, you're hungry. And then a lot of people don't run the windows in accordance with how their body works or in accordance with their lifestyle. So I see a 12 to 8 p.m., which means if you go to bed at 10, you have 2 hours to eat 8 hours worth of meals. Say that you eat 3-4 meals a day. Can you pack 3-4 meals within within the 2 hour window between 8 p.m. and when you're going to go to bed? So This time frame works if somebody has a schedule that they're not going to need to necessarily go to bed right away. That said, a lot of people, it will produce weight loss because a lot of people won't eat enough in the short window that they're supposed to eat. So, because people will eat one meal, get stuffed, and then can't do anything else for a couple of hours. They can't eat again for a couple of hours. If they eat small meals, probably they can. But for the average person, eating on a fast or doing a fast is something that I would not suggest someone do because it leads to binging. It leads to stomach issues with a lot of people because they go so long without eating. So it can create imbalances in the gut. Um, and it creates a disordered kind of eating, I think. And then the moment somebody stops, the weight comes back on because for a lot of people, that weight comes off because of reduced calories. It's just an inevitable thing for, again, people who don't have the experience with it or don't have somebody guiding them. That said, a lot of people fast unintentionally. So somebody will eat at 8 and don't eat again until noon for whatever reason, work, kids, and then they will eat. But and then the same thing happens. They don't eat for that long and then they're starving and just eat whatever they find. The closest thing, easiest thing. So the regulation of emotions, the regulation of logic goes out the window a lot of times, generally. So with intermittent fasting and no guidance, the same thing happens. Any suggestions to improve gut health? That depends. Is it known that you have gut imbalances? Or you're talking from the perspective of feeling particular issues or having particular issues? Who asks this? Tracy?
Tracy, you want to pop on?
Yeah, I think some of my issues are constipation, bloating, and I don't necessarily have allergies to some of the foods, but I don't know. And as I've gotten older, lots more reflux, silent reflux and stuff like that. So just trying to feel out what's, best, because you might be eating something and then you just feel the after effects later. And then, okay, in your head, you're like, okay, I should avoid that. But I don't know if there's any general
Well,
things
I mean,
to combat it.
well, first thing, all those issues are things I would go to my doctor for.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. If you've been having them, especially for an extended period of time, that's the first place I would go instead of trying to self-diagnose it. For the very reason that UMON might make the gut imbalance worse if there is a gut imbalance. Two, prebiotics and probiotics are pretty much self-prescribed ways of trying to manage your gut health, but also an awareness of the foods that do make it worse. So if you can identify foods that cause you discomfort, so after eating X, I experience this. After eating X, I experience this. And then you can, I mean, people will always try this. I'll always eliminate some foods and then see what else it causes these issues. So if you can do that on your own, then that's one way to try and figure out, okay, I know that this makes me irritable. All right, I can do my research now and see. But for the most part, I would say if you've got those issues that you mentioned, one of the first things I would do is get to a doc so that he can, or he or she can assess for particular things, because self-diagnosing this is not something that you want to do. In terms of foods, again, without knowing exactly what's causing your issues, it's hard to say, okay, let me add these foods, let me improve it. So certain herbs, for instance, basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, those are certain types of foods that help with gut, cause issue, not cause issues, that promote certain types of gut bacteria. But without knowing what's going on in your stomach, you can't particularly say, okay, let me include these and see what happens. Fermented foods is also something that people will use as a prebiotic, something to help change the flora or improve the flora in your stomach. But if they have things like candida, it's going to make it worse. So if you don't know what's going on, you can't take action. So we could try to self-diagnose, but if you've been having compounded issues or continued, problems a particular time, I would go to my doctor first.
Yeah.
And then if you're not satisfied with what they're saying, for instance, a lot of doctors might just go the medication route. And if you don't want to go medication, you can get a second opinion and then try a holistic or functional medicine practitioner that can lead you along the path of using food specifically to clear up any gut issues you might have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sure thing. Paulina, bad carbs. Okay, let me address that first. You know what? In fact, that's a good segue into the second part. I forgot there is a second piece. Oops. All right, we're gonna go into that right now. All right, let's talk about the holiday foods. Okay, since that was where we're headed and what we're here for. So the most common holiday, I'm not saying foods mistakes, but let's call it food scenarios. I call it special occasion syndrome because it's not just holidays. We're talking birthdays, anniversaries, vacations, that type of thing. And these are the three most common ones I've identified. We call the first one, the bucket feast. You're like, I'm gonna put all my healthy shit on pause until this special occasion is done. When it's done, I'll start again. Scenario two, I'm gonna pay for this. So I'm like, I know I'm gonna pay for this, so let me just eat as much as I can. And then afterwards, I'll go pay penance on the treadmill, or I'll go do 3 workouts back to back, that type of thing, paying for my sins. And then 3, I'm like, I'm so afraid of food that I'm just gonna bring my food, stick with my salads, and then I'm not gonna eat anything. I'm gonna, live on water, gum, and whatever appetites are pressing things because I don't want to lose control. Anybody can commiserate with this? Like anybody? Can anybody find pinpoint? Yeah, I've kind of done this. I've kind of been there. Where does this come from? I can tell you. These scenarios are driven by the feelings and thoughts that if it's not perfect, it's not worth it. I've been so bad, so I must atone for it. And I can't be trusted around food. Where does this come from? Diet culture, my friend. You guys are aware of it. You've been involved. You've been victims of it, though you might not realize that's what you've been. Yeah. Diet culture says certain foods are allowed. Foods are either good or bad, so there's moral value attached to the foods. Eating off plan is cheating on your diet, and you shouldn't enjoy food. It's just fuel. So forget about taste buds. Okay, we're just eating for the healthy. We're just eating the healthy stuff. It also says this is diet culture. Bad foods need to be worked off. You can only lose weight if you eat less food and exercise more. You need to cut certain food groups out of your diet to lose weight. And the results you're not getting, it's because of you. Because you're not doing the work, because you're not sticking to it. You're just not disciplined enough. You need more willpower. That's diet culture. So, Paulina talking about what if you eat bad foods and can't stop eating bad foods? It stems from here. Certainly the idea that they're bad foods. And I'm gonna ask you, do you feel restricted? Why you feel you can't eat these foods? Paulina, is it Paulina that asked that question?
I think she also means a certain time of month too. You might have certain cravings.
And that's biological.
It's just like any time, whether it's you're just having that kind of day or I said this to Tina, like sometimes, you just want to eat your emotions. I guess it's a fuck it feast on like a Tuesday, or or your period is coming and you're like, oh my God, I just want something fried. So yeah, I guess I wouldn't limit it to just holidays.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Your body, there's a physiological response, a physiological reason for craving certain things. Hormones dip, hormone levels change, brain chemistry changes. So like around that time of the month. I'm not too versed in the phases of the menstrual cycle, but I know during the beginning of your menstrual cycle, I'm not sure what phase that is, that's when your cravings are at its highest. And that's a hormonal change. That's when the chemistry in your body changes. So it's going to drive up those receptors in the brain that says, I want comfort, I want all the carbs, right? So that is a physiological response, which can be tempered with certain awareness techniques, certain mindfulness techniques and behavioral type changes. But it's not something that is unique to you or any woman for that matter, nor is it a wrong or a bad thing. It's a physiological response. And if that culture feeds into this by saying you are bad for wanting to eat carbs, your cravings are just you being bad or you not having willpower. Okay. But more so, a lot of cravings come from restriction. Restriction takes away your freedom to choose foods that you want to choose. Because I'm sure if during that month or during your monthly cycle or during whenever, and you feel for eating all of this, if the idea that, okay, this is bad food, so I'm just going to go right ahead, fuck it, have it. if that idea didn't exist, where, okay, it's not bad, it's just, okay, I'm craving more sugar than normal, I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to indulge right now, or I'm going to pause and ask, what's going on? What's happening? I know it's that time of the month. I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to probably eat my feelings right now, but it doesn't mean that I'm any worse off or I'm bad. It means that I'm going through something right now. So I can pick up the next meal and try to make it better. Or I can eat something that's going to make my body feel a little better, as opposed to
I was just going to
continuing.
go into that direction, Shanique, with my next question is like, let's say this is happening, you've identified, okay, you're going through that time and this is why this is happening. What do you recommend to help sort of curb what's happening? Is it tons of hydration, or like what should you be doing to help with not just eat like a whole sleeve of Oreos?
Well, the first thing is, one, you're aware. Two, recognize that this is temporary. And then you start to get curious. Okay, maybe can I have some water? See what happens. What is needed right now? Because usually after that initial, because the crave cycle works this way: urge, reward, crave again. So the more you feed it, is the more the craving continues. You can disrupt that cycle of cravings by getting curious. Okay, I'm on my
Tracy, I'm frozen.
Am I frozen? I was like, am I frozen or is she frozen?
I think it's frozen for a moment.
I'm still listening, and I was like really in tune. I was like, yes, and then.
No, I think
Is it? Was it Shanique's?
I think she's frozen.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Okay, well, hang on. Maybe Shanique can dial back in.
I'm gonna send her a message. Michelle, do you have her cell number? I just sent her a message.
I do not have her cell.
I'm sure she knows it. We lost her.
Oh,
Oh, yep. I think she's rebooting and there you go. We figured you figured it out.
So sorry.
It's all good. I think whatever you were saying, starting with Paulina, that's where we're all like, and then?
Oh
Shanique,
my
the last thing was get curious, like if this is happening, and then it cut out. So can you pick back up there?
I was saying that with your cravings, you recognize, get curious. You're aware, okay, it's that time of the month. I know I'm feeling my feelings right now. How can I disrupt it? So this is where being aware is super important. You have to be aware of it too. And then this is where the logical part of your brain starts to take over or have an input. So you ask question, what do I need right now? Comfort, love, I don't know, a hug, sex.
oh.
What is it I need right now? Because chances are it's not necessarily the sleeve of Oreos. It's just the sleeve of Oreos is just going to be the outcome from you not getting that. So the getting curious part is asking, what do you need in that moment? And sometimes what you need, you might not be able to get. And you're like, all right, I'm not going to get it. Sleeve of Oreos it is. The point is, you move on from that. It's not something that you're going to make necessarily a regular thing, but continue to stay aware, show yourself grace and compassion that you're human. So you will go through these things and you start taking those small steps. You won't necessarily get it all the time, every single time, but it's a great place to begin dismantling or understanding those things a little better. I hope that makes sense.
That is super helpful. Yeah, thank you so much for going into that.
Sure. Where was I? Did you reshare the screen? Oh, I need to share my screen. Tina needs to disable the screen sharing. Okay.
So I just made you a co-host again.
Right. So that fits into actually what I was talking about, that the idea that culture feeds into this whole restriction thing. So it removes your freedom to make your choices that include foods that you enjoy, because that culture says, hey, these are your bad foods. Don't have them. These are the only foods you should have. Whereas if it said, okay, have more of these foods, less of these foods, or have more of these foods. And if you choose to include these foods, you're thinking maybe 10%, 20% of the time, as opposed to them being 80% of the time. So 80%, you want to keep it whole, real foods. 20% of the time is, anything else. But also the idea that you have food available to you. So it's always available. If you want it, you can have it. Restriction feeds into this idea that you are not allowed to have foods. So you're gonna have to avoid it or white knuckle your way to making sure you don't finish it off, or you're gonna have to work it off if you do indulge. Jill, our business coach, always talks about intermittent sampling, which is put the food out. It's right there. It is available to you, which means there's no restriction. Okay? It means you can have it anytime you want. And what this does is, it's like exposure therapy. What it does is it makes you less sensitive to wanting to have it all, to down it, to, okay, I don't know when next I'm gonna have this. Yeah. So those are ways to start looking at how restriction plays into you, this and the mindless eating. Yeah. Restriction kind of just perpetuates that deprive and then binge cycle. So how do you handle special occasion syndrome like a boss? I did a workshop on this, just this piece the other day, and it was really fun. So I have a very simple strategy that I'm giving away to you guys because I use this with my clients all the time. And step one is identify the things you struggle with. And by this, I mean, look at all the negatives, all the possible excuses. So you have a goal, so you have a plan that, okay, you're going to eat more of XYZ and that type of thing. Holidays come around, but you have coming off of, that culture has played a part, yes, but you are doing the work to change this. So you identify all the things that can probably send you towards saying, screw it, or I'll pay for this later, or I'm going to fearfully go through this. All possible excuses, obstacles, challenges that can come at you. And this is not just for holidays, by the way. This is for any situation. Okay, what about all the times that I'm going to be moody, irritable, emotional, angry? So Paulina, this is what we were talking about, right? Not Paulina, Tracy. Was it Tracy that asked about, or was it Paulina?
It was Paulina.
About Fuck It Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me, Paulina.
Yeah. So consider all those times, and then consider all the ways in which everybody else is going to impact you. Their ideas, their talking, people commenting on your body, people commenting on your plate, policing your plate, that type of thing, telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing. Yeah. Consider all the negatives. People always tell you to avoid them. No, I'm going to be like, let's look at the excuses. Let's look at what's going to come at you. Look at them first. So that's the first thing holidays coming up. What are my weak spots? Identify. And then when you make a list or you get an idea, you then say, I have a bare minimum plan. And what this bare minimum plan is like your fail safe, your fallback, your very least that I can do that gives me more than not doing anything. So it's like, for instance, you know you're not going to have access to all the vegetables, for instance. You're going to have access to all the pie, all the, all kinds of foods. The bare minimum might be, that, okay, you want to have this food. You're like, all right, at the very least, I'm going to make sure the first thing I put on my plate is some protein and veg. Whatever that is available, I'm going to put some of that on my plate. And then everything else, I'll have a sample a bit of everything else. That's a bare minimum plan. Another way to look at a bare minimum plan is in terms of exercise, which I'm sure probably Tina has, told you guys this. If you're not going to have access to, say, your typical workout equipment, you're traveling or you go to your parents' or relatives' house, you don't have access to your typical workout equipment. You didn't walk with anything or you just didn't have anything. Instead of stressing over not being able to get a full 45-minute workout in, how about let me just do 10 minutes of something? And I'm going to do that. It could be a walk. It could be playing with the dog. It could be, let me do 10 minutes of some squats, lunges, sit-ups, or push-ups. That's a bare minimum plan. It means that at the very least, I got some movement in. It's temporary. It's not every day. It's the bare minimum. And that's it. I'm going to do that and move on. 10 minutes and I'm done. It's the same thing with food. I'm going to at least drink this amount of water, even if I eat everything else or I have some alcohol. At least I'm going to get a liter of water done for the day or two. Does that make sense? Does that fallback bare minimum plan? The point is, it's the very least you can do that's easiest for you in those moments. It's a better than nothing option, because what's the option if you don't do that? The other option too is you could rest. That's my bare minimum plan. I'm going to focus on resting and enjoying my time. And then I'll get back to, that is also an option in case you think rest is, maybe you've been pushing it hard for the year and you're like, okay, I'm taking any breaks. I'm going to give myself this time off, walk if I want, do some stretching if I want, but I'm not going to pressure myself to do X, Y, Z. Rest is necessary. It is an option. It's still better than nothing because what? You weren't resting before, now you're resting. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. And then those two steps is the winning solution for approaching the holidays. It's something I use, it's something my clients use with great success all the time. It never fails. And then I made mention of restraint before, being different from restriction. Restriction says that you're not allowed. Restraint says you're freely choosing because it is available to you always, which means you can have it anytime you want. Yeah, and it is restraint is the key to not punishing yourself after you've had food, avoiding foods, or going hard on food because you don't know when next it's going to be available. Okay, so you're freely choosing to refrain from having foods or practicing in something, fully acknowledging that you can have it anytime you want. So you don't want pie today? No, I don't want any pie today. Pie might be there tomorrow. If it's there tomorrow, there's going to be another time to have some pie. Okay. And then even if you choose to have some, you're like, okay, I don't need to have the whole pie. I can have a piece of pie and be good. Is this piece of pie going to give me satisfaction? Yes, because your mom's pie is great. I'm going to have a piece of this pie. You will, once your mom, she will even send pie to you if that's what you want. But you can have it if you ask for it, if you go out and get it. It's always available for you anytime you want. And that's the number one thing that I try to remind clients of, and people in general. It's always available. So if you've got health goals, instead of saying I can't or I'm not allowed to have, saying I'm choosing not to indulge because it's not serving me right now. I'm choosing not to indulge because I don't want it. I don't feel like it. Yeah, it makes my stomach ache. It makes me feel, itchy after having it. Well, that's an allergy, but it's making the decision to not participate and being okay with it and not feeling restricted because you choose not to. It's also choosing to have it and moving on from it. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. And it brings to mind, I talk about mindful eating, the two go hand in hand. Restraint does allow for that practice of mindful eating because it develops the awareness of yourself in relation to your environment. So back to Paulina, where you're aware that it's that time of the month, hormones are all over the place, I'm craving XYZ, I'm fully aware of this. I am choosing to have this sleeve of Oreo, but I'm also choosing to make the next best step after I do that. I'm choosing to not have this piece of Oreo because what I need is XYZ instead. So I'm going to try to satisfy that need and see what it does. I'll reevaluate once I do that. Yeah. So develop restraint and mindful eating go hand in hand. And it therefore allows you to act full ownership, taking full ownership of your actions. So again, going back to the idea that food is always available gives you power because you can always act. You can always choose to have, you can always choose not to have. Okay. And in doing so, you honor the choices that you make every single day, every single time. Yeah. So things like leaving food on your plate is a mindful act of restraint. It's because one, I'm full, I'm satisfied, I don't need to clear everything off of my plate. Two, there's more if I choose to have it. If it's takeout, I can order it next week. Yeah, or tomorrow, whatever the case is. And restraint and mindful eating goes completely against this idea of all or nothing, which is what restriction does. And as a result of that, restriction kills the ability of anybody to stay consistent. Because the moment you indulge in some Wendy's, you're like, oh, screw it. Might as well make the rest of my day junk food. Whereas I had some Wendy's, I had a burger, or I had chicken nuggets and fries. I'm gonna have dinner properly. I'm gonna have a good, healthy dinner. Yeah. So this picture here is literally of all my meals, and I include the ice cream. I include all of that just to show you that. One, my husband eats Wendy's often. Two, I always get the chicken nuggets because that's the only thing I'll eat there. Three, best believe sometimes I will have the fries. More often than not, I won't. I'll just take the chicken nuggets and add it to a salad or add it to some food I already have because I'm getting some protein, and I move on to another meal. You understand? So the idea that it's either you're perfect or you're not is what's going to kill your consistency. In general, worse through the holidays. Okay, so you don't necessarily you don't have to start over, period. It's not, because you have options. There's always tomorrow, there's always the next meal. So that's one way to think about it. And going back to that consistency piece, I'm sure fitness snacks is something I heard from either Tina or Catherine. Was it Tina first? Or was it Catherine? I think it was Tina. I think it was Tina that first introduced the idea of fitness snacks, or that was the first time I heard fitness snacks. And I was like, genius. Like, instead of focusing on, I can't get that 1 hour workout in, I'm going to take some movements, spread them across the day. That's a workout by the end of the day. Or I'm just going to do a piece of a workout here and a piece there. It's still movement. And the same thing with the basic bowl. What's your bare minimum? And a minimum that I always recommend in any situation is cover your protein and your veggies. I always say your protein and your micronutrients, right? And veggies are not just green lettuce, green leafy vegetables. Let me tell you, vegetables are large in terms of, there's a wide spectrum. If you think of the rainbow, vegetables literally run that entire spectrum. You've got red, you've got greens, you've got yellows, you've got whites, you've got oranges, you've got purples. Okay, 6, if you look at that, that's a lot of vegetables and fruits. So if you can cover protein, veggies / fruits, and then fill your plate with whatever else, that's a great way to maintain consistency, even through the holidays. Yeah. And another important piece, which a lot of people don't talk about in the context of nutrition, is boundaries. I'm going to talk about it because it's very important. This goes back to the fuck it feast idea. Somebody upsets you in your family when you go home or you travel or whatever the case is, because boundaries, they don't respect your boundaries or you've not set clear ones. You respond by, I'll just eat half of this pie. You know, I'll just go ham. I'll just drink my feelings in wine, that type of thing. So boundaries are very important, not necessarily just for the holidays, but in stressful situations, to one, help maintain your sanity and create more room for enjoyment, but also rest. There's rest that should have been rest as well. And boundaries keep you present in your current moment so that you can be your best, you can perform your best, you can feel your best, feel your healthiest. And it states what you stand for and what you don't. So a simple boundary might be, I'm turning my phone off at 10 or at 7 and putting it in a different room while I get ready for bed. A boundary could be something as stopping somebody when they try to police your plate. That's okay. I'm fully aware of my food choices. Thank you. You know, saying no and mean it. You don't need to, no is a full sentence. Those are things, boundaries, like, okay, this is going to create my safe space. I need to create my safe space. And my safe space is by me setting these clear boundaries, somebody else respecting them, but also you enforcing them. So if someone crosses that line, you can say, hey, I do not like the fact that you disrespected that boundary, or you crossed the line, let me reset it, that type of thing, okay? Couple ways, just a few boundary scripts. These are not set in stone, but these are just some ways you can set boundaries with people. I mentioned, no. Telling someone that my food choices are my own. Telling someone, okay, please don't comment on my body. Thing doesn't necessarily equal happy or better. Or the reverse, if there's someone comments on your weight, my weight is not up for discussion. Or I'm happy and healthy right now, my weight is not an issue. Or, you know, there's more food if I want, if somebody tries to force food on you. Right now I don't. Somebody comments about why you're not eating, or why you're not drinking, or why you're not staying up late. I'm setting a boundary. Does that make sense? So I am pretty much at the end of it. I want to just state that with looking at your healthy goals or trying to get to them, number one thing is recognize that there is no darn destination. The journey is the destination. And it's not short term. If you're trying to do this for the rest of your life, you're trying to maintain these habits of, working out consistently, eating healthy foods, setting clear boundaries, creating better, space, safe space. It's something that's going to be daily, something you're going to have to work on very often, right? In order for it to be a lifestyle. And recognizing to not just for the holidays, but those steps, 2 steps I shared with you will help you move through any season, all season. There's no need for restriction. There's no need to punish your body. And there's no need to wait to start over. Move on to the next opportunity is always something I say. So you have a meal that's not your usual, that's okay. Next meal, make it your usual or as close to your usual as possible. Okay. And that's it for me. So with all that I've shared, I'm doing this with permission. Lest you guys think I'm hijacking Tina. I'm hijacking Straight Up Strong. I'm not. So
I want you to tell everyone about what you do. Tell everyone about what you do.
Yeah, so I said it before, I work with people to master those healthy eating habits using basic bowl nutrition, which is principles that go deeper into a lot of things. And I have a brand new program out for this very reason. So all that I've spoken about are basic things. And too many people skip the basics and jump straight into a diet because, they just want to lose weight. However, the detriment for a lot of people is that the learning curve is steep and the habits aren't sustainable because they try to make jumps too quick, too fast, too early. I focus on the basics and getting people making these basics like second nature. So one way to work with me is one-on-one coaching. That's my longest program, 4 months. And then I have a brand new program out that's focusing on, it's non-diet. We're focusing on the food aspect, how to use food to move your health goals along. But from the perspective of starting where you are. I ain't giving nobody a diet. I am not giving someone a diet and giving them a list of approved foods, say you need to do X, Y, Z. Some of the very principles you've seen are exactly what I'm implementing. And we will be discussing these on a weekly basis, troubleshooting, and education is involved as well. So that's those are 2 main ways you can work with me now. This is where you can find all the details on the program. And then if you want to connect with me, so Food Focus is the name of the program, Performance Nutrition for Beginners. And I position it for beginners because those are the people that I want to work with. Those are the people who need the most help, I think, as far as an education into what healthy eating actually is. It's not a diet. And too many people are directed down the path of dieting, thinking that is healthy eating, and end up developing disordered eating habits or bad unhealthy relationships with food. So that's my focus, hence Food Focus. And then if you want to stay in touch with me, a couple ways you can do that. I'm on the gram daily, every day, all day. I'm also on Twitter. You can email me, info@shaniqueallen.com. If you want to see more on the food stuff, which I'm working on improving, that is Basic Bowl Nutrition. That's on Instagram. And you can always go to my website. So
Can we get the slide so then I can attach it to the recording email for everyone too?
sure,
Like all the information and the recording. And the slides.
My sport, I played volleyball professionally for a while. And I also did bodybuilding and physique competitions. So I was also a fitness instructor and personal trainer. So I did all the things. So yeah, that's it. But thank you guys for having me. Now, question.
Thank you.
Were you a professional volleyball player in Jamaica?
Say it again.
Were you a professional volleyball player in Jamaica?
Yeah, I was. I played for the national team and I did play pro beach circuit for a while. So throughout the Commonwealth Caribbean for the most part. So South America as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Shanique, so much. So helpful.
I'm so glad. Thank you guys. One thing I wanted to say is, for the most part, and Tina and Michelle can always tell you that, is one of the things that helps with keeping my nutrition pretty simple. I follow basic bowls. Is I literally go into my cupboard or my pantry or my fridge. What do I have today? And throw something into that. It's
We
not
all do that.
plan. I'm just always doing that because I want to show people that you can eat healthy without necessarily, one, having to do a lot of work, and two, not overcomplicating it. So using your hand is a great way to use it. The other way to do that too is I use a bowl. So if you notice the bowl, the pictures of food, they're all in the same bowl, and that's intentional because that bowl helps me to measure my food pretty exact using my hand, and it gives me a great visual. Plus, it's a pretty bowl, so there's that. But I just want to encourage you, ask yourself when you go, next time you feel frustrated about, making something to eat, just ask yourself, what do I have and how can I use protein, veggie, carb, and healthy fats to make something that's going to be satisfying? And honestly, that takes a lot of the pressure off when it comes to, and this works with kids too, because I've used, when I was using this before, I actually named it Basic Bowl with my nephews, who one doesn't eat meat, but he likes pretty food. So I just put like the colorful stuff on his plate and he would eat it. So it works pretty well with picky eaters too. Stir fries are a great way to get picky eaters to eat a lot of things because of different textures, and they won't necessarily know what's in it. So there's that, as well as one pot meals. So yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. That was
Thank
so
you.
helpful. Yeah.
Thanks,
Really great.
Shanique.
Thank
So-
you so much, Shanique, for
Yeah.
being here and sharing all of this knowledge and so many truth bombs, dropping them during this workshop. So I'm so thankful that you were able to come and do this workshop with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, guys.